are here. 7.
We only have 4.
No, you can go into executive session.
This is an audio test. Everybody in the room, I want you to know you have a hot mic at the moment because we need to test the audio for channel 17.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Eileen,
Kim, this one's going out to you.
5.
5.
Max.
you've
Okay.
got 3 minutes. Do not be,
Yeah. Here's
No,
Max.
let's
We
just,
have number 5.
3 minutes away, we've only got 4.
Hello, number 5.
Kim, just give us a shout when you've got sound levels so we can turn them back down and let people speak their minds.
Wow, you can hear that. It sounds great. It's amazing what it sounds like when people.
Because you're much stronger now. Is that what the new mics are going to be
I
like?
occasionally have people
Are there going to be new mics?
Yeah, like, no, but I mean, they're so loud.
Oh, no, I get really close because otherwise people recede from them and then they can't be heard.
Oh,
because I occasionally have people contact me.
hi.
He always contacts me.
He's constantly doing.
But I've had other people too.
Hey, how are you?
We'll say, I can't. Well, Mark, Mark.
I went to the Chelsea.
Did you? Yeah.
He didn't know this.
You never are, Sharon.
I know. Why should I ever think?
Guy got people contacting me.
I don't think they have any way to know.
Treading.
I will be until I retire, then I'll be above water.
Yeah,
To
sure it is.
say.
Come on, be
Yeah,
honest.
Excuse me.
absolutely. Are you kidding? I was bringing Kim home that day.
No, I didn't think you knew what I was
said-
saying, and I was locked out.
Oh, this is gonna make me
But
late.
nobody came. I called Brian Lowe, and he let me in.
I can't wait.
Janitor went right,
He showed up at the
I
last.
went out in the hall, he was right there, and he walked over to unlock the door.
So it wasn't
order. In the absence of President Nodell, may I have a nomination for an acting president?
Oh, Karen wants to.
Councillor Paul?
I would nominate Councilor Wright to be acting council president.
Okay. Do we have a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Councillor Wright?
All right, thank you. First item on the agenda is the agenda. Councillor Roof.
Thank you. I'll move to amend and adopt the agenda as follows. Note revised version and co-sponsors of consent agenda item 5.46, resolution options for pet-friendly de-icing materials on Burlington sidewalks, revised. Councilors Roof, Shannon, Wright, Moore, Nodell, Mason, Paul, Dean, and Busher per Councilor Roof. No communication regarding consent agenda item 5.47 through 5.49 per DFO Goodwin. Note revised version for consent agenda item 5.48, resolution authorization for reimbursement from public improvement bonds for school district capital improvements, Board of Finance per DFO Goodwin. No communication regarding consent agenda item 5.50 per DFO Goodwin. No presentation slides for agenda item 6.02 per COS Low. Note updated PowerPoint presentation for agenda item 6.01 per CSM Director Redmond.
Thank you, Councillor Roof. Are there any other amendments? Councillor Busher.
Yes, so I would like to just further amend the item which is on consent 5.49, the authorization for reimbursement from public improvement bonds for the city 10-year capital plan. The current resolution says to bond for $8 million, and it should be to bond for $9 million. That was just a transcription error.
Thank you, Councillor Busher. We have that. Okay. Other amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. We have our agenda. Item number 2 is a communication from City Attorney Blackwood regarding expected executive session. Attorney Blackwood.
Yes, we'd like to talk to you about collective bargaining with the union, and so this would be contract negotiations, and we would look for a motion to go into executive session that found as the first motion that premature disclosure of the content of the city's position would put the city at a disadvantage.
Thank you, City Attorney. Councillor Mason.
I'd like to make that motion.
Seconded by Councillor Roof. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to go into executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I actually think the first motion was for
That's right.
a finding.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. That's the finding, and then Councillor Mason.
I'd like to make a motion that based on the finding, we go into executive session.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Busher. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving into executive session, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So we will move into executive session, and who will stay for the executive session, City Attorney Blackwood?
The mayor's office staff, the city attorney, and the CAO.
Okay, we'll wait to clear the room. There will be no action taken, correct? Correct. So we will clear the room and come back and reconvene the meeting. And hopefully we will be fairly close to 7. Thanks.
Friday we had yesterday.
Councilors, take their seats, please. City councilors, take their seats, please.
Are you ready for another 2 years?
Okay, we're going to reconvene the regular city council meeting coming out of executive session at 7:16. Would everyone please join with me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have already approved our agenda, of course. We've done the executive session. And let me just say that I am the acting council president tonight because President Nodell is under the weather. She has contracted what so many people have around the building and the legislature and everywhere right now. So if she's watching, feel better, President Nodell, and we'll try to muddle through. Item number 3 on the agenda tonight is a report from the Police Commission, and we do have the chair of the Police Commission here for the yearly report, Chairwoman Longmore, and Commissioner Hart, if you would come up and join us for the report. Thanks for being here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And if you could make sure, and if everybody could, make sure to pull the microphones in and speak right into the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. You can hear me? So I guess we thought maybe we'd start and just thank you all for having us here, and greetings to everybody, and I hope City Council President Nodell feels better. Have people had a chance to look at the report? We thought maybe we might just open up with questions and then maybe do a couple highlights.
I'm sure councilors have read the report, but maybe just give us a brief overview of it, and then we'll take questions.
So a couple of highlights in terms of the police department, a couple of highlights we're 6 months late in presenting this, so we apologize, but in terms of the fiscal year that ended June 30th, a couple of highlights. The police department wrote a prep guide to the Vermont Police Academy entrance exam to help with diversity recruitment and hiring, and also helped rewrite the format of the Vermont Police Academy entrance exam questions, again, to help with that. So that's something we want to commend the police department on, is really their efforts to recruit minorities and women in the hiring process, and I think that's going very well. And then in terms of the commission, some of the highlights for our work is we convened 4 public forums in February and March of 2017, gathering public's concerns and comments about the fair and impartial policing policy, and we presented that to the council in April of 2017. And then right now we are piloting the State Police Advisory Commission model, and we're going to present to the council in June 2018 on that as well. So those are the highlights of what we've been doing.
Okay. Anything else, or we'll go to questions?
Sure.
All right. Councilor Busher, and then Councilor Hartnett.
So thank you very much for the report. I thought it was, as you said, it's now 6 months into the next year, but it was still very insightful. You mentioned one of the things that I thought was noteworthy, which was the work on the ability to the entrance exam and opening that up for diverse members of the community. I really think that is so important because we heard that there were some obstacles that really could be overcome, so I'm glad that the police department was willing to work on that. The other thing which although I knew about community stat, I really didn't know about community stat, and the way this report showed me some information. And so for me, kid stat and family stat were just, I just hope that the members of the community know that KidStat, and I'm going to read from your report, addresses domestic violence and opioid use, with the primary concern being the children impacted by such circumstances. And so it's really good to know that that group is there focused on children. And then with Family Stat, you say a subcommittee partner agencies looking at family situations impacted by a parent or parents' long-term incarceration or death. And so, you know, you look at the individual with the opioid crisis, but I sometimes think that I'm never sure if everybody is looked at, and this seems to be a much more holistic approach. And for me, it was really important for me to get these sound bites of what really is going on behind the scenes. So I thank you for educating me on this, and really want to appreciate the department's work on this effort. So thank you.
And in fact, Commissioner, if you wanted to, you could attend a ComStat. I would reach out to Chief Del Pozo if there's interested in seeing how one works. We've been invited when it comes up in our meetings that it is something we could attend.
And I've attended right here, as a matter of fact.
Councillor Hartnett.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. I just want to point out one thing and then kind of find out where we are on another. The one thing I do want to point out is I've had numerous people come in and talk to me about the community policing effort that's going on in our city, which is outstanding. You know, we have Burlington police officers on Sunday mornings getting out of their cruisers, going into the new North End, playing football with these kids, and just relating to them on a level that's never been related to before. I think it's obviously a huge success, and it's really where we need to start, right? If we want to, when we talk about issues in our city and differences between law enforcement and these types of you know, situations and families, I think it's just amazing the work they've done. So I just want to acknowledge that. But also I have a question as far as the chief's review. And if either of you are on that task or not. I know there's at least 3 commissioners working on the review for the police chief. And I was working with, I think, Commissioner Berenberg on some of the outlining issues that were going to be covered. And there were some important things there I think that need to be made public. But I don't want to speak unless are you guys on? Do you guys know where that review is right now and who?
No, last year we did that in the springtime, in May, June.
Yep.
That review took place. So we haven't embarked on that, but perhaps Commissioner Berenberg is working on it.
Yeah, no, good. No, that's glad. I just didn't want to overstep before. I wanted to give you guys an opportunity first. So that will be coming before us, I believe, in April or May. But I think it's important to point out that this year's review is also going to include interviews from people that are in the public, which is really kind of a neat concept, right? It's just not going to be done by the commission, all right? We're going to go out into the public, and we're actually going to be interviewing people that live in our neighborhoods and get their thoughts. And I just think that's a great vision to have. The work that this commission has done, along with this police force, has been amazing. And I applaud all the work that's going on, and I really think that we're going in the right direction. So again, thanks for all your work.
Well, I want to piggyback on what you said about the community policing, because I was at the Bagel this weekend, and I did get to see a police officer in uniform approaching young children and handing out stickers, and I thought that was terrific to see. So they really are getting out in the community, and I'm honored to be on the police commission. I think we have a great group with great leadership, so I thank you.
Yeah. And I agree with a lot of all of the positive things that we can talk about and highlight. And, you know, as many of you, anybody who knows me knows that, you know, I also keep sort of a critical eye on things. And I think that policing in general, in the city and in the state and all over the country, is a pretty hot topic right now. And I think that it's really important to look at things like data. You know, I have an organization called Kaleo, and Burlington Police Department has been a wonderful partner in that, in terms of bringing people together with the community. One of the presentations that we had was about use of force. And it's really important to look at that information, because while there's a lot of really good work going on, there are still concerns that I have and other people have about things like use of force when it comes to brown and black people. So it's really important for us to highlight all the things. I think Chief Del Pozo is doing an amazing job. I personally admire a lot of the stuff that he's doing. And I serve on the Attorney General's panel for racial disparities in the criminal and juvenile and criminal justice system, big mouthful. And one of the things that we'll be doing, as a matter of fact, we're creating a report right now that was like due a month ago, and we'll be presenting it tomorrow night. And in the report, we will actually talk about Chief Del Pozo and the Burlington Police Department and some of the work that's been going on as a model for the rest of the state. And I'm also interested in exploring the possibilities of helping Chief Del Pozo get a seat on the training council. There's a Vermont Criminal Justice Training Council that, like, I think it's Rick Gothier is the chair of that group. And I know that Chief Del Pozo is interested in having a seat. And I think that he's earned it. And there's a lot of stuff that he's doing, even the way that he thinks about policing. He's open-minded about new ideas. He certainly hears us when we talk about concerns and stuff. And I think that, you know, there's at least 79 police organizations. I know we're just here about Burlington, but, you know, we live in Burlington, but we travel around the state. So when I think about policing, I think about it a lot of times in a statewide perspective. And I just really want to, like, you know, go on record as saying that a lot of what Chief Del Pozo is doing and the Burlington Police Department, Chief Burke, and I'm forgetting her name.
Deputy Chief Wright.
Chief Wright. They're, a lot of what they're doing is going to be looked at and even recommended as a model. So I just wanted to make sure that I said that as well.
All right, thank you. Councillor Tracy is up next, be followed by Councillor Jang.
Thank you very much for all your work, and I just want to thank you for also lending a critical eye. I want to sort of speak to that a little bit. I certainly appreciate the work that you've done around police accountability, especially as it relates to addressing some of the racial profiling issues that we face in our community. And one of the things that we had tasked you with doing was dealing with the state police advisory model and really analyzing how that might work. And so I know that there's a report back that's supposed to come in June, but I'm just wondering if you have any initial thoughts, you know, thinking about this as a sort of statewide model, recognizing that Burlington is has some different challenges, some different trends, some just differences in relationship to the rest of the state, and wondering if you have any thoughts on how well that's working, and if, you know, we need to seek, you know, additional changes, or if we need the data at the end of that just to finally make those assessments.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question. Is this related to, like, the fair and impartial policing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we do have a lot of challenges, and I think that, you know, again, the, you know, statewide policy impacts local police departments. Hi, Sarah. And so, I mean, maybe you could just give me your question again. I want to make sure I'm answering your question.
Well, I'm speaking more to the state police advisory model that we've been addressing and discussing, really trying to think about what looks like what's an appropriate oversight model for our police. And
Right.
you know, we had talked about, you know, maybe trying to bring a commission of folks from historically marginalized communities to inform that work, or taking an existing model and really bringing it into Burlington. And so I'm just wondering, you know, what the commission's role has been in some of those conversations, and where your thinking is now that, you know, that we're a little bit removed from having sort of had those conversations.
Right. And so I think right now we're in the process of reviewing packets of complaints. And so I think that each one of the commissioners is assigned to work with three chiefs and to sit down and actually go through them. I think that it's still, you know, that model, while I'm encouraged that we're doing that, I'm not sure I can really call it oversight, and I can't really call it community oversight. And I think we're moving in that direction, and I think we need to continue to move in that direction. I mean, even if you look at something like you know, President Obama's recommendations on 21st century policing, oversight is in there, and community oversight is in there, and involving the community in all the different ways, like even the way that Dave was explaining, you know, going out and interacting with the community is really important. But I think that, you know, oversight and civilian oversight is something that doesn't just have to happen when there's a consent decree, like in Detroit or something, and we're certainly not Detroit. But I think that citizen oversight hasn't really happened in Burlington or the state of Vermont, not in the way that it could or to the level that it could. But I can say that we're moving in that direction. And I sort of adopted a little thing and kind of, had the okay. It wasn't official or anything, but I was doing something called a facilitated complaint process out of the CJC. So as a commissioner, I can receive complaints, and people submitted complaints to me, and I would bring in somebody from the Burlington Police Department and sit down with the person and just go through the complaint and talk about it. That's not necessarily oversight, but it's a step in that direction. So I think we're moving in that direction, and I just like for people in the city of Burlington and in the whole state of Vermont to not think of civilian oversight as a dirty word, because there's a lot that can come out of it. And in the processes that I've used, people that have complaints a lot of times don't even necessarily understand their rights and responsibilities when they're interacting with police. So it's been an opportunity to educate people and to, sometimes even just help them. A lot of times the people that the police departments are interacting with are people that have a lot of other needs or are marginalized or have a lot of other issues going on, frankly. And if we can figure out a way to, while the police department can't be like human service workers, we can connect them with services and help. And through something like a facilitated complaint process or even real, legit oversight, there are positive outcomes. It's not just about catching the police doing something wrong. It's about us coming together as a community and figuring out how we can all be safe and be protected equally.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Jang, you have the floor next. And just a reminder, everyone, the mics don't seem to be working great, so make sure to everybody pull the mics in close.
1 2 1 2 1 2. Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you, President. Before I start, I wanted to really say thank you so much, Longmore and also Sharon Hart, for your service. This is amazing for the great work you do. And I also want to just for us to think about also the 2 police officers that were killed on Saturday at Westerfield in Ohio during their line of duty. And I believe that in Burlington, it is very important for us to keep on selling our city because of the safety we have here. That's very important. I am just very impressed by your work in collecting data. The data collection at the city department, police department is amazing. And I think you need to keep on doing just that. That's amazing. But looking at the data, I looked into the mental health calls that you receive. And I was just wondering if it's the same people, that you receive the call from, or it's just, it is just an increased challenge that we need to pay attention to.
I think it might actually be both. Do you want to say something about that?
Go ahead.
And I do think it's sort of a question that's probably better answered by, senior leadership in the police department. But I do think that there is a high number of calls that end up being classified as mental health calls. And I think one of the things that one of the responses has been to try to work closely with a group of people that includes like NAMI and Reed, Niall Ward, I'm sorry, and some other people. As a matter of fact, they're even connected with Jim Letty, and they have a project that they presented called the Ride Along Project. And I think we're making some progress with that. I mean, it was a little bit slow at first, but so I guess my answer to your question is that yes, there are a lot of mental health calls, and it's something that is getting attention, and people are trying to figure out ways to help officers be more equipped to deal with those kind of calls. The other thing that I would say too, along the lines of just wellness and mental health, is that something that has come up for me just in the process of learning about police work and getting to know police better is really a concern about officer wellness. And I think that it's something that a lot of times it falls by the wayside. And so it's something that I try to even remind myself about, that we want that to be a priority, and we're really concerned about officer wellness. And I just, I'd like us to make that more of a priority, because I think when a police officer abuses his or her power, something's going on and they're not well. And there might have been something that could have happened before they got to that point. So along the lines of mental health on every side, we really need to be holding officer wellness as a priority.
I have a couple of other questions, but I'm just going to ask this one maybe before the second round. And also one of them during, in the data collection, we saw also increase around calls for drug sale. And was just wondering if when we talk about drugs, marijuana is not included into it. Is that accurate or?
Just recently, I think. I mean, I don't know the exact details of that. Shireen's a lawyer. She would do better than me.
In terms of the data collection, I would assume that any illegal drug was included in that data, but we can follow up, and that's a great question that we can clarify for you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jang. Councilor Moore, you have the floor.
Thank you, Acting President Wright. I apologize that I'm late. I'm that council member that has a class that goes until 7, so I'm pretty much always late these days. And I apologize that I haven't been to any commission meetings for quite a while. Same reason. So 2 things. I really want to commend you for the facilitated conversations you're having. I mean, it seems at this point it's kind of like an anecdotal story, but it also sounds like it's something that's very Burlington and very Vermont, because we are such a small community, and we do want to build those connections, and we want to think about the wellness of everyone. So I really appreciate that you're doing that. And I also want to commend the use of force presentations that I went to quite a while back, because they were so intense. The one that I went to 2 of them, one at the commission and one at the Kaleo meeting. And I mean, just, we've had some trainings on racism, just the intensity of a white guy from the police department. He's not a police officer, but he's the data guy, doing the presentation to a group of people, many of them people of color, on use of force. It's pretty intense. He was willing to stop continually and ask people's questions. People didn't have to hold questions to the end, which I think might have been very difficult in that context. He really took his time and brought us through the data, and they were very open in explaining what we were looking at. And I just really appreciated that, and it said a lot for we have working for us.
And that was Eric Fowler, and unfortunately, he's working for the NYPD now. I think they scooped him up.
Lucky for them.
But I agree with you 100%. He did an amazing job, and he really had his feet to the fire that day, and he handled it really well. He even did some follow-up afterwards, because there were some really significant questions. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that that's something that, even though sometimes they can produce difficult moments, it's really important that we continue to do that.
It was really kind of amazing to see. It made me really proud of us.
Right. Thanks for being there, too.
Thank you, Councilor Moore, and no apologies needed, but thank you. Other questions from the council for the police commission? All right. Thank you very much. And again, Commissioners Longmore and Hart, we appreciate your service on the police commission. And with that, we will, hearing no objection, we'll waive the reading, accept the report, and place that on file. And we are a few minutes late, so we will move right into item number 4, the public forum for tonight. So we have just a few people lined up to speak, but if anybody else in the audience wants to speak that hasn't turned in a sheet, they're over here in the corner. Just fill it out and bring it over to the city clerk's office in the corner over here. So we'll open the public forum up tonight with Sandy Wynn, to be followed by Mary Ann Ward. You have 3 minutes, and I think most of you know, but there's a light system that you follow, and we got some goodies coming from Ms. Wynn, which we always appreciate.
You have 2?
All right.
Well,
And just, yellow light goes off, your time is winding down, the red light goes off, your time's up, you know the drill. Good evening, Ms. Nguyen, thank you for coming, welcome.
Good evening. As I know, you're all expecting my seasonal little mini lecture on why you should buy fair trade chocolates. Be patient, that'll come. First, a couple of notes. I want you to know that free trade is not free. That is a myth. And fair trade, traditionally in the United States, refers to protectionism. It is used for new industries that want to grow, and it creates walls to help them grow, and it helps them not have to compete with other competitors. Fair trade is also a global term, and it has a very different meaning on the global stage. It refers to supply chains that are transparent and show respect for people and the environment. What a novel idea. So how much cheap stuff do we really need? Everything we buy, from our clothes to our electronics, to our flowers and our food and our chocolate, have supply chains. And oftentimes in those supply chains are dirty little secrets. Ignorance can be bliss, but I'm hoping that none of you want to be ignorant, and all of you really do want to know. Now for the chocolate. In 2019, the chocolate industry in the U.S. will hit about $25 billion in sales. Children, forced labor, and child slave labor are in high demand. Consumers drive that demand. When are we going to say no more? Even our local schools have children going around the neighborhoods raising money for PTOs, selling chocolate full of child labor. That's not acceptable. Next time you go to an office and you see a bowl of chocolate and it has child labor in it, say something. I do, and you can too. Together we can make the world a better place, but it starts with each one of us demanding that the products we buy are fairly traded. And on that note, I wish you all a happy Valentine's Day, and especially to the city of Burlington, a fair trade town since 2009. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen, and thank you for the treats. Marianne Ward is up next, to be followed by Kit Andrews. Good evening, Ms. Ward. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Marianne Ward from Ward 7, and I'm here to talk about my problems with Summit Street. Some years ago, I was attending a regular Sunday meeting at Champlain College, but I stopped going because the parking was a nightmare and it just wasn't worth it for me to go. It was too frustrating, so I stopped going. The south end of Summit Street, as you know, is plastered with resident-only parking signs and always completely free of parked cars. Why the signs? Residents on Summit Street don't have parking problems. Their high-priced homes include driveways and garages. Public streets should not be for sale. Yet this administration and others have handed over this public street to private homeowners. So why is that? Could it be that because their homes are pricey, they feel entitled to claim the street as their own? Is that why they petitioned the city to plaster the streets with resident-only parking signs? With the support of this administration, it seems to me that classism is thriving on Summit Street, and it is having a negative impact on me. I'm taking a class at UVM, so I'm up there a couple of times a week. It is enormously frustrating when I can't find parking on Summit Street, and Summit Street is always completely empty. I've learned the history of this long-standing problem from multiple sources. Seems it's a very hot political issue, and no one dares rock the boat, although many are frustrated about it. I've also heard the city's lame excuses, including that students are the problem, and that is a safety issue, among others. This is one of the times that the students are not the problem, and safety is nothing more than DPW's fallback excuse. The obvious truth to me is that Summit Street residents, DPW, and the mayor, who has the final authority, are the problem. I'm asking you to please solve this problem because I too deserve to live in a livable city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. Kit Andrews, to be followed by our final speaker, Steve Goodkind. Good evening, Ms. Andrews. Welcome.
Thank you. In December, I said I would present my sum up of the loss of BT to the public good. As I continue, let me be clear about who I'm speaking for, myself. My three-part sum up focuses on the City Council, on KBTL, and on the mayor. I covered part one in a piece called Leadership. This piece is called Outreach. There's one proven way to fight power with limited resources. Go door to door to every residence and business, at least with a leaflet, and better through canvassing. In all my canvassing in wards 3, 4, and 8, one person wasn't sure that local ownership was better than corporate. Everyone else, whether with Comcast or BT or even with no cable or Wi-Fi, wanted local ownership. But about 70% of them thought it was over, we'd lost already. Why? Because they believed these statements: the co-op bid is not financially viable and Citibank will sue us, to be hard and fast facts set in concrete. It's not right, in my view, that so many Burlingtonians, the vast majority of whom wanted a locally owned BT, were so extremely undereducated and miseducated. I believe that if the KBTL side had done 2 citywide leaflets and canvassed perhaps 1/5 of the residences and businesses, enough councilors would have been won over by their educated and impassioned constituents that KBTL would have won the vote and even overridden a veto. But let me tell you something. We did not do a citywide leaflet, not one. We lacked the resources. I don't know the percentage reached by our targeted leaflets and canvas, but it was small. Okay, maybe we would have lost anyway, but at least we would have educated the people to the greatest extent possible, given the imbalance of power. It's a crying shame that so few saw this educational piece. And far fewer saw this wonderful little piece. Keep BT local is the safest choice for Burlington. Myth, the Keep BT local bid is risky. Fact, Keep BT local is the safest bid. The residents and business owners of Burlington deserve to hear our side, to know of our confidence to buy and run BT with huge, increasing benefit to our people for 7 generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Steve Goodkind is up next. Welcome, Mr. Goodkind.
Thank you. And I second most of what Kit just said. I think you're finishing one more chapter tonight, possibly, of what is really going to turn out to be one of the more misguided and ill-conceived efforts in the city by selling Burlington Telecom. I think we're going to look back in the future, and others will look back and just wonder what the heck was going on here. Well, I've said it before, I think I do know what's going on, and I hope in March there's going to be a change. I think what the problem is, it's all optics and no vision. And this is my treat for you tonight. If anyone would like one of these bumper stickers, I'll give you one a little bit later, but that's what we're dealing with. All optics and no vision here. It's got to change, and enough of this crap. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodkind. With that, that was the last speaker. We will close the public forum and wraps up item number 4. We'll move into item number 5, which is the consent agenda for this evening. Is there a motion? Councillor Roof.
Yes, I'll move to amend and adopt the consent agenda, taking the actions as indicated.
Thank you, Councillor Roof. Seconded by Councillor Busher. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as indicated, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We have approved the consent agenda. And we'll move now to the deliberative agenda. Item number 6.01, presentation from Ron Redmond, the Executive Director of the Church Street Marketplace. regarding holiday recap. Mr. Redmond. And
thank you for inviting us today. We appreciate this. I'd like to introduce Jenny Morse, who's our marketing director and has been with us for
4 years.
4 years. Feels like it's sometimes 10 because we do so much work together. So
and pull the mics right in because they don't seem to be working well tonight.
So next slide. Just very quickly to remind everybody who we are. We are a city department. We manage a business improvement district. There are over 1,000 of them in the United States. Burlington's Church Street was one of the first in the country. Our charter requires that we use non-taxpayer dollars. So for 35 years, we've funded the marketplace entirely through the fees of the 30 property owners on Church Street. We're not allowed to use city tax dollars, both for operations and for brick repair, major capital improvements. 9-member commission. We have more commissioners than staff. And we treat our commissioners as our guides. They are our funders, and so we work really closely with our property owners and especially with our retailers. We're on a kind of first-name, day-to-day basis with them. You can see our staff there, myself, Jenny, Becky Cassidy, who's a consultant, Jim Daly, who manages our maintenance program. And if you have a chance, if you see Jim on the street or a maintenance guy, stop them. They really like it when, if you feel like what they're doing is great, they appreciate it. So next slide. Our goal or our mission on Church Street is really 3 things, and we really keep it simple. We strive to make things clean, safe, and fun. So the clean part is the maintenance, snow removal. The safe is our community policing program, working very closely with BPD. Also, we have a great connection with our street outreach program. And of course, the fun is creating an experience. That's what we have right now. That's the one thing that we can compete against, whether it's online shopping or suburban shopping, is we have a really great experience, and we want to keep enhancing that every day. So next up, Jenny, you want to talk about our customers?
Yeah, so while our mission is clean, safe, and fun, everything that we do, we try to, support the many businesses that are on Church Street. This gives you a breakdown. We have 71 retail stores and 25 food and beverage businesses. 75% are locally owned. And these photos that you see are from a campaign that we did throughout the holiday season, which is kind of what we're recapping here, where we really tried to put the focus on emphasizing how many local businesses there were throughout the downtown. Church Street is, we have a 2% vacancy rate. There are only 2 open storefronts at the moment. So to go into the holiday season, we asked our businesses to give us some feedback. This was from the stores only, not restaurants. But it was a great holiday season. 29% said great, 44% said good, 18% average, and 9% poor. So this was feedback from 35 of our retailers, which we feel is a pretty good sample size to see how people were doing overall. And over 50% say that last quarter of the year is where sales are the strongest. So it's a really important time for them, as well as an important time, for the downtown. So we were glad to see that it went well.
Great. So on the next slide, what we've been doing for years is we track sales. So at the end of each year, we ask our retailers, were you up, down, or even? And we've been doing this pretty consistently since about 2005. And these are just some sort of a series of dates rather than give you all that data. I want to have you look at the last 3 bars or last 4 bars. You can see, starting in 2014, we started to see a little bit of slip. And what we saw this year was a rebound. So for 2017, we saw that more retailers were up this year versus 2016. We can attribute that to a number of things. The weather in 2016 was tough. We've also done a lot more work in terms of focusing our social media, focusing our marketing programs, and working closer with our retailers. So we were happy to see this number. It was really, really heartening.
During the holiday season, we put a lot of emphasis on events that are free for the community. We put on the annual Santa Parade and the tree lighting show on Black Friday, which brings thousands of people downtown. We have reindeer, horse rides, and a number of other events that we invite the community to, lots of family-oriented things to do during the holidays. In terms of promotion this year, we really saw a shift in where we put our advertising. We did almost everything online through social media and a couple of other outlets. We saw just a great response through those channels, and this is a breakdown of impressions, of number of eyes, number of times it was viewed. So this is breaking down our social media platforms, through our website, email marketing, and through Vermont Public Radio.
Just want to make a quick note that our downtown is beloved. And we say this because when we look at our social media numbers versus other cities that sometimes are 2, 3, 4, 10 times larger than we are, on a per capita basis, our numbers are very strong. And our number one audience, our number one customer is always a Burlingtonian. And it's been that way. It can be that way any time of the year. Anybody, we survey people on the street, majority of people on the street will be from, or the largest section of people will be from Burlington. But we do take this very seriously, and I think that our social media is, you can talk a little bit about this, it's amazing.
Yeah, we, put, as you'll have seen probably through the presentation, I like to tell stories through photos, and we try to always, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So we tell our story through photos. It's showing the experience that you'll find on Church Street. And so we were happy to see, this was just 1 month of numbers, which it's pretty incredible.
So with the Park mobile app that we have or the city has introduced, we had an opportunity to use it this year as a promotional tool. And
yes, we partnered with DPW and the Burlington Business Association to do the first Park mobile promotion that we've done in the city. We offered $3 off your parking session if you use the Park mobile app, and there was a series of codes, the promo codes you would enter. And it resulted in a 20% increase in new users of the app, which was really exciting. And it was very well received by both businesses on Church Street throughout the downtown, as well as just Burlingtonians using the app. We were able to gain some information that's on the next slide about where people were coming from based on the app, and this had been provided by DPW that we included here tonight to show you about who was visiting our city throughout the holiday season that was using the app.
so why is this important? Why are we showing you this? We have been doing this kind of work for probably a decade. We've been capturing emails and postal codes, and we want to know who's coming here and when are they coming here. And so this data helps us determine that. What you want is a healthy mix of locals and Vermonters and tourists. You never want to have too many tourists. You never want to have too many locals. You sort of want to have a nice mix. And I'm knocking on wood that we're in good shape. It's always interesting to see these, and it does shift from season to season, but it stays about in this range. Again, looking at Burlington being our most important audience. So the next one is...
It was also consistent throughout this other promotion we did, Shop Burlington, where if you made a purchase at a local store, you were entered to win a prize full of gift certificates from local stores. And throughout that, we were able to collect zip codes of shoppers, which we also saw was mostly Burlingtonians.
And so the next slide, we wanted to look also at the marketplace parking garage. We know that during the holidays there was, we all had concerns with the mall going through transition, with construction starting, with the garage at the mall being maybe a point of confusion for some people, not sure if it was open or it was closed. So we wanted to look at the data for December for the Marketplace Parking Garage. That is the most used garage in the city and probably one of the most highest used in New England, or certainly in our region. And what was heartening about this is that we saw an increase in the use of the garage. That's really a good sign. We were surprised at this number. It was very, very heartening again. So the last couple of slides, we want to talk a little bit about the safe part of that safe, clean, and fun. We have seen a real increase. Thank you. This is a great slide. This slide shows three different indicators, basically. One is quality of life. That's the green line. The second line is property crime, and the third line is violent crime. Now, this is for D area. This is for the downtown district. And we have been charting this data for many years. This chart shows you 2012 to 2017. Now, the implementation of foot patrols, we know, has really helped both North Street and Church Street, two very busy avenues. And if you look at 2015, when foot patrols were really started to come on strong, this is the calls for service for quality of life issues, and this is things like we're all familiar with disorderly conduct and et cetera. It's really good to see this drop. Look where we were at 2015 and where we are at 2017. Of course, the property crime has remained pretty flat, as has violent crime. Also, very good signs. So. Good information. I want to thank you for funding, providing additional funding for the police department. Your leadership has really made a difference. And I think the police department are certainly good partners of ours, and we work very closely together. So, and that's our presentation.
All right, great. Thank you. Questions from the council? Councilor Busher.
So thank you. There were some additional slides tonight. Are those loaded up into board docs now? Will they be?
Yes.
Oh, they are.
And
okay,
that's,
good.
yes, absolutely.
Good. So I had a question. So when you looked at overall sales compared to prior years, where did that information come from? Did that come from, were merchants solicited to offer that, and were the numbers consistent each year, or is there a variable here? Is the denominator the same all the time or not?
It's always our retailers only, and we ask them to tell us in January, were they up, down, or even for the previous year?
How many retailers respond to this?
About 54%. 50, I think.
About 50%.
50%.
Of retailers usually respond.
Okay, so it does vary then, the number of, so I guess, I took statistics, once. And so I'm just trying to figure out if we are really looking at the same numbers or if there's a variable here. And what I'm hearing is there is a little bit of a variable. There still is a message that I'm not trying to diminish the message, but I'm trying to understand if this was always a constant number of people responding or whether there was a variable. And I'm hearing there is a variable for the number of people that respond. Do you believe that the businesses that don't do well respond to these?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I was happy when you made a comment saying that, most of who shops here are Burlingtonians, and that was good for sustainability, but yet it concerned me. So when you showed the pie charts, which showed that, yes, there's a chunk of Burlingtonians that we can depend on, there really are an equal amount of people from surrounding communities and then other sections of the pie that are from elsewhere. So because I would think if it was only us supporting us, we're missing something, but that's not really the case.
We would be in trouble. Yep.
Yeah, that's not really the case. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Busher. Other questions from the council? Councilor Jiang.
Thank you, Acting President. Ron, if you don't mind telling us how long you've been working for Church Street, 4 years, and you?
19 years.
19, wow. So what are now your hopes and dreams? I think, you made so much great accomplishments and what are the hopes and dreams for the Church Street Marketplace? What are you looking forward to?
Thank you for asking that. I think for us, where our future lies is in a unified downtown. As we looked at this year, we were concerned that we wouldn't have enough offerings for our consumer out there. We're very competitive. We know we're competing with suburban shopping areas. So what we decided to do is we added all the other merchants on the side streets and the rest of the downtown. So rather than just presenting Church Street merchants, we presented the whole cadre of retailers throughout the downtown. And the idea was that we want the consumer to understand there's a lot here. There's a lot here for them. And I think as we look forward, we look at online shopping, we look at that affecting our sales. We feel that having a unified downtown with more oxygen, more things to talk about, can only make us stronger. We're also very grateful that when we can bring more downtown workers to our downtown and more downtown residents, those two things can be tremendous for keeping your downtown vital, especially as we look at online shopping. We continue to offer a very high quality experience as long as we can keep things safe, clean, and fun. And we're confident, but we're also not going to rest on our laurels, and we're going to keep working hard. So there's other thoughts? Any other wisdom from?
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Jang. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilor Jang. Councilor Tracy.
Thank you, Acting President Wright, and thank you for your presentation. One of the things that we hear about in terms of Church Street, at least from some of my constituents, is the issue of affordability on Church Street. Seeing a lot of high-end specialty retail, basically feeling like they're priced out of Church Street, and also that high-end specialty retail doesn't meet a lot of basic needs, things like hardware. It's been a conversation that's gone on for a long time. Are there things that other cities and other municipalities have done to really attract those kinds of businesses, or do you not see that necessarily as your role? I guess I'm just really wondering, how can we get Church Street to be more affordable and accessible to people across the economic spectrum? Because this is really everybody's street, and I think that everybody should be able to afford to shop there.
We're looking for ways that we can control it with our fees. How can we make the cost of being a merchant on Church Street more sustainable? And the fees are high. And how can we do that? That's one of the biggest challenges we have. We have worked with some stores. For example, a hardware store has shown great interest in coming to our downtown and locating on a side street. So we are sensitive to that. We want the downtown to have a broad range of services. And again, it's the affordability. What happens is it's a very popular, successful downtown with property values that are high. And so, we have to kind of do that dance, but we're with you. We would like to have more services, and it is challenging.
All right. Thank you, Councilor Tracy. Other questions from the council? Councilor Dean.
Thank you, Acting President Wright. Just a question around, there have been a lot of changes in terms of the way we pay for parking downtown, including the new Park Mobile app. Were there any comments that came back to you about it being more difficult or easier to park downtown during the holiday season, and how that affected customers and clients who are coming to access downtown businesses and restaurants?
I think that through use of the app, as that continues to grow and people get more comfortable using the app, and as people get more comfortable talking about using the app, that enhances the experience and makes it easier for people. Anecdotally, I haven't heard whether it was easier or harder to park downtown. We do, hear angst about the closing of the Burlington Town Center garage, which is why we were happy to see that usage of the Marketplace garage was higher. We will continue to try and push people towards Lakeview and the College Street garage. It is something that we're always trying to incorporate into the conversation when we can. We are partnering with DPW and BBA again this week to do a Valentine's promotion, promo code LOVE, all week long, so to come down for Valentine's Day. So, it's great to have that technology to continue to find innovative ways to talk about parking and try to make it more of a fun conversation instead of just where am I going to park, So.
And there's been a lot of the private lots, the small private lots around the city have been able to offer their own parking through a private firm. And it is more expensive, but it's an offering, and that I think that has helped any kind of capacity that we can find, again, to make that experience a positive one. So when somebody comes down, that parking is a big thing. You know, if we can help them through that.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, President Wright. I really appreciate you coming and giving this presentation. I thought the council and the public would be interested to hear it. To me, the take-home messages to me from this presentation were two things that, until seeing these numbers, I had some concern about. One, this was really the first season, holiday season, in which we really did not have, more than 2/3 of the mall was no longer really part of the downtown, and I certainly had some concern that would have a negative impact on the other businesses. To see that 73% of the merchants report, with the caveat that it is only the merchants responding to the survey, but still 73% reporting good to great seasons, I think does suggest that during this transition period, when the mall is being transformed into this mixed-use neighborhood, there's some real resilience in the downtown that should carry us through. And when we get to the other side of this construction period, I think there's a lot of reason to be hopeful that downtown will be stronger than ever. Similarly, we've talked a lot in 2017 about public safety concerns in and around Church Street, and to see that the downtown merchants who have a very high stake in public safety being well handled, that perceptions of public safety and the reality of public safety being that there are really few stakeholders that have as much at stake in public safety in the downtown as the Church Street and surrounding merchants. And to see that, again, a large majority, over 70%, feel that the foot patrols are working, and that they have basically a positive and improving a view of public safety, combined with the statistics that the calls for service are going down on those three measures, is encouraging. And I think certainly as we head into budget season again and think about whether we want to be resourcing these additional foot patrols as we did in this year's budget, I think it's quite validating to think that this is a strategy we should continue.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other questions from the council? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Thank you
for that report. With that, we'll close out that item and that report and move on to item 6.02, a presentation from Noel McKay, our CEDO Director, regarding City Place Burlington, progress update and efforts to support Macy's employees. Good evening, Ms. McKay. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for asking me here tonight. I'm going to be covering an update on kind of the progress, and I focus mostly on Section 5 of the Development Agreement, which focuses on the coordination and workforce development, then also give you an update on the Macy's employees and how we're supporting them kind of during their transition. So next slide. So we have been closely tracking all the commitments in the development agreement, and we'll kind of give you an update on kind of the opportunities first for local firms. One of the Section 5B talks about locally and regionally sourced materials, products, and services. We're kind of in this early part of demolition, and to date, besides PC Construction, there's 27 local subcontractors that are in the area, are providing services, and another 18 local consulting firms. And Devonwood estimates about 650 employees of those firms are working on the project. And here's just a list of some of the local contractors that are working on the project. And if you go to the next slide, you can also see the services, whether it's environmental or printing, lighting design, landscape architect. So you can see the kind of range, and that's all available on the website as well. Also in the agreement is the best efforts to hire local residents. And in the development agreement, the owner agrees to provide jobs for qualified and low to moderate income people and residents, post notices of the job opportunities, and participate in 2 job fairs. So to date, the owner has hired PC Construction, which is a 60-plus-year-old local firm that is headquartered in Vermont and is 100% employee-owned. We have provided PC and Devonwood with a list of job posting places where we suggest that they should provide job posting listings that they might not think of out of their normal realm, so a lot of the partners that we work with. We have begun planning the first of the job fairs, which will happen this spring. And we've also helped, through the mayor's office, facilitate builds for subcontractors to local firms. So in terms of job training programs, so the owner is required to solicit and review proposals from community job training programs. We have begun discussions with PC as the main general contractor for Devonwood to really connect and support this effort. But we heard last week that a grant that we put into the Department of Labor. We received a $65,000 grant by the Department of Labor that will, most of that will go to resource for job training programs. So we will be kind of figuring out between resource and some of the other groups that do job training, how best to meet the needs of PC and the project, and kind of work on those review proposals from those other areas for Devonwood to work on. Another part of it is really cooperation and coordination of the agreement, and we have right now 2 different teams that are meeting or touching base on a weekly basis. The first is a design team, so we have members of DPW, CEDO, and Devonwood's project management that are really looking at meeting the deadlines around plans and designs for the public improvements. So we're all working together to try to make sure that we're coordinated in those efforts and we meet the timelines outlined in the development agreement. We also have a communication team that includes CEDO, DPW, Church Street Marketplace, the Burlington Business Association, and Devonwood. We've been meeting and we touch base every week. That kind of work has included the outreach and meetings we did with local businesses. We also have done several construction updates to local businesses. And on the website at the CEDO BTV Mall redevelopment process, we have a construction update section there that provides updates on major construction kind of information. So at the end of the year, when all the information around the parking garage being open, what was open or what wasn't, all the information is there. And we'll also be doing a front porch forum posting soon, just so everyone knows where that information is. And that's where we'll be providing the updates there. We're also looking at, again, how do we continue to coordinate? We have a checklist for all of the development agreement elements outlined. The city has reviewed it, and it's been sent to Devonwood, and we'll sit down and go through to make sure we're all in agreement as to what we need when, and to make sure that if any changes are needed by either side, we have a process to do that, so we're on top of that. The encumbrance, that work has been done, which is the public right-of-way work, so we're doing that. Construction information, that's the website information, so we're communicating kind of the construction updates. The pre-construction survey has been done. We have held the 2 meetings that are required in the development agreement, but I think we're going to have many more as time goes on just to check in. A hotline has been established, and we are working on how do we coordinate those services. Also, in the development agreement, CEDO will be receiving 2 payments over 2 years of $50,000 to really help businesses be resilient during construction. That $50,000 comes when the foundation work, I believe, is started, but we kind of got ahead of it. So we had an RFP for that work. We received last week 5 proposals. The picture on your right is the most creative of the proposals that we received in terms of packaging. We will be working with the Burlington Business Association and the Church Street Marketplace to review those and have those ready so that when we're all ready to go when we get the funding. We're also working together on a budget for that $50,000 fully. So some of the other ideas have been small grant program for local businesses to implement some of the one-on-one that comes out of the consultant work. Looking at printing for parking, some of the printing for the parking and pedestrian maps that we're developing. Things like increased lighting and signage and pedestrian walkways for safety and also support of those job fairs. The communication team has also been working on, again, the communication piece, and you'll see that we've put a map together for pedestrian and city parking so people know that we can park. We're hoping to be able to put this in a kind of a smaller scale so that the local businesses can pass that out for both their employees and their customers. We timed the upgrades to the Lakeview garage so that garage was fully up and operational when the Burlington City Market came down or closed. We have moved. The agreement, I think, is 300 parking spaces, but we've accommodated 375. Leases from the parking garage, and we worked closely with Devonwood over the holiday to keep the former mall garage open through first night. So we've been working together on that, and that map is up on the website as well, so people can access it. And there's other sections of the development agreement. Again, this is only one. We are working with all the other departments to make sure that we're coordinated and we're tracking all the different aspects. And we are just wanting to make sure that we're all in alignment regarding kind of timelines, because often DPW is working on one portion, CEDO is working on another, BED might be involved, and so we want to make sure that we're all on the same page, because this is a really large project for the city, and we want to make sure we're coordinated. So that's kind of the end for the updates on the most of Section 5 for the development agreement, what we've been working on. And in terms of Macy's closing, you know that in January, Macy's decided to close its Burlington store. It's one of about 100 nationwide that they've closed. We have been working, the mayor's office in CEDO has been working with the Department of Labor to respond. The Department of Labor did their rapid response teams on the 6th and 8th of February for employees. And that really provides them assistance as to what's available for them for the Department of Labor and how they can access. And we've also been working on planning a local job fair on February 21st. We now, I think that says 35 employers. That was as of Friday, but as of today, we've got 49 employers signed up. And it will be from 3 to 6 at the Holiday Inn. And we will be working to get the word out and make sure that people know kind of when this is.
All right, thank you for that report. Questions from the council? All right, there are no questions.
You know where to reach me if you have any.
We do. Thank you, Director McKay, for that report. Mr. Mayor, did you want to?
I just quickly wanted to thank Noel for her hard work on, I think as came through, the CEDO team has really been working very hard to take on their responsibilities at the beginning of this construction period and to do everything the city can to bring some resources to bear to help with the Macy's employees during this difficult, disruptive time in their lives. So I want to thank Noel and her whole team.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With that, we will move to item 6.03, and President Nodell will be joining us on the phone for this item. Councillor Mason is contacting her right now. While we with that, this is a resolution. I will be turning to Councillor Paul to move this resolution on Burlington Telecom and the issue of carried interest. But first, I would like to say we have two legal memos from our legal staff, Piper memos. And if there's no objection from the City Council, we would, I would move that, we would release these publicly and put them on board docs right now, and I think our legal counsel is fine with that, if my understanding is correct.
That's right.
So on hearing no objections, we'll do that, and those will be made public now and put on board docs right now. And with that, I will, President Odell, you're with us?
Yes, I'm on. Thank you.
Thank you, President Odell. We hope you are feeling better soon. And with that, I'll turn to Councillor Paul.
Okay, thank you, Acting. Can you hear me?
No.
No.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. So anyway, as I was saying, thank you, Acting President Wright. So I'd like to move the resolution, waive the reading, ask for the floor back after a second, please.
Motion has been moved by Councillor Paul and seconded by Councillor Hartnett. Okay. Councillor Paul, you have the floor.
Great, thank you very much. So as the council will remember, in late January, we adopted a resolution establishing a process to address the issue of the city having the right to a carried interest in the new Burlington Telecom under Schurz Communications ownership. And at that meeting, we took public input. The second phase of the resolution that we approved was to vote on whether or not to pursue a membership interest purchase agreement with Champlain Broadband, which is the name that Schurz is going under, the LLC, for its work on Burlington Telecom. And that we would then be requesting that the the Public Utility Commission would approve such an option. The action on this resolution that we're voting on tonight is whether we want to explore this agreement and direct our legal counsel to pursue or to seek approval from the PUC on the carried interest. The resolution doesn't obligate us to any percentage or dollar amount in the new entity. That's something that we will do later this year after public input and further review, which was again part of the resolution that we approved in January. And as this is the second step in the process that we agreed to in January, hope that it will receive unanimous support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. President Odell, did you want to weigh in? Are you with us, President Odell?
Okay, now I am.
Did you want to weigh in, President?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I wanted to make sure I offered that to you. Any other councillor who would like to weigh in on this resolution? Councillor Busher.
I just want to say absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Busher. Brevity. It's Councillor Shannon.
Thank you. I want to say that I am supporting this really only to foster more community discussion about this. I'm quite unsure that this is the right direction for Burlington to go in. I think we have to consider what other options that we have, because we could invest this money in any number of things. If the goal, it seems that the goal of investing the money here is maybe to make more money, though that's not completely clear that that's a good way to do that. Also to have a voice at the table with a board seat, but the decision-making capacity of that board is not completely clear to me. So as we move forward, and we'll have a lot of time to decide what we really want to do with this, I hope that we'll also be thinking about the other options where we might invest these funds. The community certainly has a lot of needs. We have talked, endlessly about our housing needs in this community. There are programs that have been cut because every year the federal government gives us less grant money, it seems, than the year before. There's many programs we've done historically that we stopped doing because we didn't have the money to do it. And I don't think that we should just assume that we're going to reinvest the money in this venture and that that's necessarily beneficial, or to kid ourselves that this somehow means that we still own our telecom because it does not. So those are my thoughts, and I just wanted to, I will support this so that discussion can continue, but I don't want it to be indicative of future support necessarily. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Shannon. Councilor Hartnett.
I just want to follow up with Councilor Shannon's comment about we all have plenty of time. Could someone kind of lay out the timeline of when this is, to me, because I'm a little confused. I've heard two different timelines. I'm curious to hear.
City Attorney Blackwood, or?
Excuse me. Yes, right now our next step is to file a petition with the Public Utility Commission for approval of the sale. And why we were asking you to give us the direction to move forward is because we are going to include in that a request for the Public Utility Commission to approve the city having a carried interest in Burlington Telecom. So that's the immediate issue right before you. Sorry, I'm getting a correction that it's to approve the agreement that allows that to occur. And basically says that we can do that. So that's really what we're looking at right now. And then once we file that petition, the Public Utility Commission will take a period of time and do a process and end up with issuing a certificate of public good. And after that certificate of public good is issued, we will do a closing of the sale with Shores, with Champlain Broadband, and from the time of that closing, we have 1 year to decide whether or not we are going to invest in the new Champlain Broadband.
And that's given the fact that Public Service Board says it's okay for us to do so, right? I mean, there is a possibility, from what I'm hearing, is that they might say, sorry, City of Burlington, we're not going to give you that opportunity.
They may not approve that portion of the application. I think that's a possibility. I also think it's a possibility that they're going to put off their decision on that until we have a firm commitment on what we're asking for specifically.
Sure.
So I think it's a little unknown what we're going to get from the Public Utility Commission. If we knew, for example, that there was no interest at the City Council level to support going forward with carried interest, we would tell the Public Utility Commission that now and have that not be part of the equation.
Right. Well, I think, for me personally, I think it's important that we do have a carried interest. Would it be prudent to go to the Public Service Board with a number of what we'd like that to be? Would that enhance our chances more?
I think clarity on the position would be beneficial as soon as we have it, yes. But it doesn't appear that we will know that in time for our application for the CPG.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Hartnett. Councilor Mason.
Well, thank you, Acting President Wright. I will somewhat echo the comments of Councilor Shannon. I appreciate or understand the purpose of considering this is really twofold for the governance piece, but I think we have to be mindful that we are one board member if we elect the 7.5% of a 7-member board. So it's not as if we will have really, we'll be in the room, but we won't have, much power of persuasion on the board. And certainly as a very minority member of an LLC, we will have, little to no say as a member. The second piece is because of the potential financial return. And I think, as we've discussed ad nauseum, the business plan is not for any distributions to be made, nor is it to sell this entity. So from a financial return, this could be, who knows if there ever will be a return. So I'm looking forward as we have this conversation, which I hope we would have a discussion of, if we not roll over the $5 million, what uses will we put those dollars to? To me, that's a piece that I'd like to know before making this decision. And the second, I'd like to see the terms of the operating agreement. We're sort of operating a little bit in a vacuum in terms of what exactly the rights and privileges of our 5% or whatever the percent is, the 16% will be. So that's a piece that I'd also like to see before we make this affirmative decision as to roll it over. And I also think, this will afford us an opportunity to engage the public, because I have heard, certainly from those who supported the co-op, a strong desire to roll over, but I think that's been a discussion that has been lacking in specificity up to this point. So I think it's incumbent on all of us to sort of bring the public a little bit more up to speed in terms of what we're rolling over, what that looks like, and what the potential is with that investment. Thank you. So I should say I will be supporting this, because as I understand this, in the absence of doing this, we can't roll over. And I'm not there yet, but I'd like to have a longer discussion. And by voting yes, I think we're enabling that conversation to be had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mason. I think that's right. And I think Councilor Paul made that clear in her introductory remarks. And that's agreed to by the attorneys, right? That we need to take this action in order to have any possibility of having a carried interest. Correct? Thank you. Other questions by Councilor Busher?
May I have a second shot at?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. So when I hear people say that that a carried interest will yield no financial gain, it does beg the question: why would anybody want any part of a share in Burlington Telecom if there was no financial gain? And I understand in the short term there wouldn't be, but in the long term, when people project that this entity will be $100 million, that money isn't all going to go back into reinvesting in it. There will be some profit sharing from this investment. And so to me, I think that there will be some benefit. How we use that money also is something that I think is what restrictions on the use of that money, if there is some money coming back to the community, is really important for us to understand too. So I'm trying to figure this all out when we say a shared. Why are you shaking your head? Because I think I'm missing the point of all of this. I keep thinking there will be no financial gain. That does not really make sense to me. And so I understand in the short term there's a reinvestment in the entity, but in the long term, so any kind of investment, you don't look at short-term gains. You have to look over the long term. At least that's what I've always been advised. So when you're giving us information back, I would really like to understand that better.
Response from our attorneys?
I think that there's just not a set amount. There's not we can't say with any certainty what that will look like at the moment. And we do know that the short-term plan, as has been discussed, is that the money is going to be reinvested back into the business. I don't think it's that people aren't saying there wouldn't be value or that there couldn't be a distribution in the future. I think it's that we don't have control over that distribution, the timing of that distribution, and when it will occur.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Busher. I knew we were not getting away with a one-word response from Councilor Busher. Councilor Harnett.
Yeah, I just want to, I think, be mindful of the fact that, to think that we wouldn't benefit long-term financially. I hope we do. And it's not like if we don't, then we have a $5 million windfall, right? I think we better remember where the $17 million came from. And I hear Councilor Shannon talk about the great needs that we have in this city, and I can appreciate that, but there's also a need to return some of this money to the taxpayers. And so it's not like this is money that, now we've gotten it and we can go out and spend it wherever we want. I would like to see if we did recoup $5 million and possibly even more than $5 million or close to $17 million, that we might see a little reduction in our taxes here in the city overall, to be honest with you, before we start spending this money, because I think our first obligation is to the taxpayers of Burlington. So I would hope that would also always be on the table. And for me, reinvesting that's probably my number one reason and why I talk to the people in the New North End and why I chose to go this route. And I think we owe it to the taxpayers of Burlington to get as much money as we can get back for them. And so I hope we always keep that front and center. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Hartnett. Mr. Mayor, and then Councilor Shannon.
Thank you, Councilor Wright. President Wright. I did want to share my views on this. I appreciate the concerns raised by Councilors Mason and Shannon, and I think those are real concerns that I think it's a good thing that we have an extended period of time to sort through those, to weigh those considerations and others in the months ahead. I definitely strongly support us taking the step tonight of indicating, approving this motion, of giving an indication to the attorneys that we are likely to want a carried interest. I think this is a right that we worked hard to secure through the negotiation period, and it would be, premature. It would be a mistake, I think, to at this point surrender that. If somehow an argument emerges that the council does not want to move forward with a carried interest in the future, we've had assurances that that could be a decision made at a future date. My own personal feeling at this point is that I'm very likely to support at least the 7.5% carried interest to get us a seat on the board. That too being an important right that we negotiated for in the agreement, and one that I don't fully at this point share the view that will be. I think that'll be an important seat. I think it will be one where the city may actually find over time that has an outsized voice at that table, even if the percentage of ownership is relatively low. I think the future Burlington Telecom directors will be reluctant to take a position contrary to the city's position, even if they have a large city ownership. So I think this is a very meaningful right that we've negotiated to secure, and it will ease the transition from BT, what it's been in its history up until now, into this new entity. While I certainly agree that, I think we should be clear-eyed that there is no predictability of what the return will be by becoming, an owner in a private concern. I certainly, at this point in our deliberations over this, feel that it's likely to be quite a safe investment, that if it is approved by the regulators, is likely over time to secure some kind of return, significant, meaningful return to the people of Burlington. My understanding, what we were, Councilor Busher, kind of shaking our heads about is the money that will flow back in the form of future dividends will not be restricted monies. It will be quite flexible money, which will be, I think, something that future councils will and administrations will appreciate. So I think to go beyond 7.5% of an investment is another important debate, and I'm not there yet. That we want to maximize. I think we likely do want to reserve some of the net sales proceeds to address some of the cash needs, like the pension liability that will be coming out of this. So I think there's quite a bit of debate to have in the future. I don't think we have to have that all tonight. I do strongly support us taking the step of indicating we would like that carried interest coming out of tonight's meeting. Thanks.
Thank you for that guidance, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Shannon?
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that actually returning the money to taxpayers was on my mind when I made my statement, and I failed to say it. But I do think that's a fair consideration as well, and that we can't assume that an investment in a competitive, risky business entity is necessarily going to yield more money to the taxpayers. But yes, I don't want to exclude the taxpayers from this benefit, certainly.
Councilor Hartnett was reading your mind, Councilor Shannon. Anyone else?
Always is.
Any other counselor? Hearing none. All those. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Mason.
Councilor Nodell asked me to dial her back in for the vote, so bear with me.
She wants to weigh in?
I'm sorry, she was having problems.
Or wants to vote?
Yes, she would. Bear with me one sec. Sorry. Hey, Jane, hold on one sec. We're
Okay. President Odell, you're with us?
Yes.
Okay. Seeing no more comments or questions from the council, all those in favor of approving this resolution, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That resolution passes. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed. Councillor Jang, you're voting no?
We have to do a roll call.
We have to do a roll call.
She's on
Is
the
that
phone.
correct, City Attorney Blackwood? We have to do a roll call if there's one. Okay, so with that, we will ask the clerk's office to call the roll.
Councillor Hartnett?
Yes. I'm not first.
Councillor Nodell?
President Odell?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor
We got you.
Councillor Dean?
Aye.
Councillor Shannon? Yes. Councillor Bushore?
Yes.
Councillor Tracy?
Yes.
Councillor Moore?
Yes.
Acting City Council President Wright?
Yes.
Councillor Mason?
Yes.
Councillor Paul?
Yes.
Councillor Jing?
No.
Councillor Ruth?
Yes.
11 ayes, 1 nay.
That resolution passes by a vote of 11 to 1. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And that concludes that item, 6.3. And we will move on to item number 7, which is committee reports. Any committee chair would like to give us a report? Councillor Dean.
Yes, the local control subcommittee meeting and licensing committee will be held here at City Hall tomorrow afternoon at 4:45.
Thank you, Chairman Dean. Other chairs? Councillor Tracy.
Next License Committee meeting will be on February 27th at 5:30 down at DPW.
Thank you.
No, sorry, Tuke.
Tuke.
Sorry, apologize.
Thank you for that correction.
On Tuke, so.
We got you. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Tracy. Other chairs who wish to give us a report? All right, seeing none, we'll close that item out and move on to item number 8, City Councilors on General City Affairs. Councillor Paul. And then Tracy.
Thanks, Acting President Wright. Just wanted to explain there was an item that was supposed to be on tonight's agenda that we actually did not amend the agenda to include, and that is the resolution honoring Tony Pomerleau. As we all know, we all mourn the passing of Tony Pomerleau this couple of days ago. The family could not be here this evening. They have a private event this evening before the funeral tomorrow, and so because of that, we wanted to make sure that the family could be here, and we will do the resolution at our next council meeting, even though it's in March, or actually February if we have our meeting next week. But we will do it at the next meeting. Hopefully at that time the family can be here to join us in honoring his memory and all that he gave to Burlington. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. Councillor Tracy.
Thank you, Acting President Wright. I just wanted to speak to some pretty scary stuff that's been happening in Burlington, and also just thank the administration for the strong statement against the white supremacists that have been unfortunately continuing to show their presence in Burlington. And while it is with greater frequency, I don't think that we should ever condone this and ever really normalize this. This is not normal. This shouldn't be happening in our community. And I want to pledge myself to working with the administration and other councilors to have any sort of response. I think we need to absolutely have a united front on this to say that these folks are not welcome in our community. And not only that, but I think we're really good at responding to this, both on the political level and as a community. But I think we can't let this distract from some of our other work that's really more positive or more proactive work. I think we react well. I think we need to do a better job of continuing to really do the proactive stuff that we need to dismantle structural racism and white supremacy in our community. So just want to state that commitment and just thank the administration for their strong statement against those folks who showed up on Saturday. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Tracy. Councillor Jang is up next.
So I wanted to raise one, just for us to remember, take the time to remember George Courtier that passed. We had the funeral on Friday at the UU Church, and George was a long time working person for the city. He worked for so long for Church Street Marketplace and then for DPW. And then he, struggled a lot with an illness that really struck him and also struck his family. And now we believe that he found peace. I'm just glad that at the funeral, there was so many public people working at DPW that showed up and that also made strong statement about his contribution to the greatness of this city. Thank you, DPW, for showing up and showing up strongly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jang. Councilor Mason.
Just briefly, thank you, Acting President Wright. On our consent agenda, in case anyone didn't see it, was a proposed ordinance change relating to suspension of the certificate of compliance landlord-tenant issues. Given that it's been such a topic of discussion on the council, I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention and advise you to reach out to a member of the ordinance committee with any comments in advance. We do not have our next scheduled hearing, but I expect we'll take it up in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mason. Other councilors? Councilor Busher.
Thank you. So I wanted to just pick up where Councilor Tracy left off about affordability downtown. Panera leaving downtown, I think, is a really big loss. Also because they were an affordable, healthy option for food. Not fast food, but really decent food. So I think that I really worry about what Church Street might look like in the future, and I am concerned about certain losses that we've had so far. And Macy's, the loss of a department store, even though a number of people don't, people shop online, even though the most probably less electronic person on the council, I shop online all the time too, but I like to go down to stores, and I think that if Macy's leaves, then we have no department store, which I think is really an issue. The last thing I wanted to mention was last Tuesday on February 6th, there was a meeting in Ward 1 that was regional planning talking about the Winooski Bridge and the replacement of that bridge. And I went to that meeting, and the options were incredibly insightful. There will still be 4 lanes, but they mentioned this proposal, which I just can't wait. It's called a slide, and they build a bridge beside the bridge, and then they demolish the bridge, and then they slide the new bridge in place right over where the old bridge was. And if indeed that proposal, and don't hold your breath, because this is probably 10 years out, but if that proposal moves forward, the community will get involved, and it will be educational, and I hope I'm alive to see this, because I want to watch this happen. So there's a lot to be. Well, I don't know, but anyways, but it's just, you know, the way money trickles down, you know, it's probably going to be 20, 30 years out. But anyways, it's a great option because that bridge is so important. I mean, it will sever us from every place else if we didn't have that link to other communities. So I just wanted to report briefly. I could go on forever, but all of you want to leave, so I won't. So anyways, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Busher. We're rooting for you to make it. You're looking pretty good, Councilor Busher. Other city councilors who wish to weigh in? Okay. With that, we will close that item out. And item number 9 is City Council President update. President Odell, of course, we wish her, hope she's feeling better, wish her well. And Councilor Paul alluded a few minutes ago to the fact that the February 20th meeting potentially may not happen. We don't know that. I know President Odell is working on that, and we'll find out in the next days here. But I'll just say that 3 weeks from tomorrow is Election Day, Town Meeting Day, March 6th, and we urge everybody to please come out and vote. Whatever ward you live in, let's have this be a record turnout in the city. However you're voting, whoever you're voting for, whatever issue, we have a mayor's race, we have city council races, we have a school budget, and we have advisory questions on the ballot, and there are a lot of reasons to come out and vote. So let's make this a great election and a great turnout. With that, I will turn it over to Mayor Weinberger.
Thank you, President Wright. Much the same thing was on my mind, that Election Day is 3 weeks from tomorrow, but early voting begins sooner. It will begin by this Wednesday. The ballots will be here, and anyone who wants to vote when City Hall is open can do so. Also, this time, for the second time on town meeting day, first time during mayoral election, there will be same-day voter registration, and it is something that our clerk treasurer's office has worked hard to accommodate. And the last thing I want to mention, President Wright, is just something that happened since the last time the council met. Is the council took action last time to approve the agreements with Champlain College and the University of Vermont, and the approval of a ballot item, and it will be ballot item number 3, regarding this institutional bond that will have UVM and Champlain College taking responsibility for $6 million of bonding that we will have available to us as a city to invest in the infrastructure plan. And after the council vote, UVM's Board of Trustees did approve the agreements as well, and these agreements have been executed pending voter approval. And while it is something that I hope the council will be active in making people aware of and educating the voters on in the weeks ahead, and I think this is an important opportunity for the city to move forward on its infrastructure goals. And just final point, it is unclear. I have talked with President Odell about the meeting next week, and we've agreed that unless there are time-sensitive issues that need to be addressed on the 20th, it may be possible that meeting may not take place. The uncertainty, of course, is we do not have another scheduled council meeting until March 12th, so we'll be monitoring whether there's anything that requires action in advance of that, but it is possible there will be no council meeting next Tuesday.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and glad to hear that you are interested in that town meeting day election coming up in 3 weeks. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councilor Hartnett and seconded by Councilor Roof. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.